Hello, people of YouTube. I'm Steve Gray. This is Gray's Guitars. Thank you for watching. Today we are talking about Trump tariffs, tariff terrors, terrible tariffs, however you want to say it. Tariffs on guitars specifically. This is a guitar channel, so more about what is going to happen with the tariffs on guitars and amps too. Specifically import ones, specifically Canada, Mexico, and China. Those are kind of the three big main places. Those are all places that guitars come from, more so China and Mexico. And what it's going to do in terms of affecting price, affecting things, and what's going on here. I'm going to try not to get too political because ultimately this is a guitar channel, not a politics channel. But if these tariffs do come into effect, you can expect it to affect your wallet. Ultimately, that is what's going to happen. Now let's start with the used guitar market. Now the used guitar market, as I did mention in a video previously in my Guitar Apocalypse video, used guitar apocalypse video, there's too many used guitars right now. So the price of used guitars, while it's not super low, unless you can get a deal on something, there's really no point in buying it because there's a million Square Strats out there right now, a million Mexican Strats out there right now, Telecasters, Les Pauls, and pretty much anything that you want unless it's like some sort of super high-end custom thing. And it's not going to affect the used market whatsoever because they're already here, they're already used, they're not going to jack up the prices on them because they are already here in the United States. So you don't have to worry about the used market. That's my bread and butter. That's primarily what I do is I buy used. I very rarely buy new outside of something like a Firefly, which we will talk about. And if you're just buying used, no worries whatsoever. If you're just buying USA, also no worries whatsoever. If you're buying South Korean, apparently didn't want to go after South Korea for whatever reason, you don't have to worry about that either. So good to go in those types of manufacturers. Made in Indonesia too. So Fender, whether they realized it or not, did an amazing thing by switching the kind of low-end Made in Mexico series and put that in Indonesia. There's no tariffs on Indonesia right now. So they could literally switch all of their Chinese production and all of their Mexican production to Indonesia pretty much at the drop of the hat because they have all the templates over there anyway, and they will not be affected by the tariffs whatsoever. They could shut down the Mexican factory, shut down the Chinese factory if they needed to, and be good to go. Now, I don't think they're actually going to do that because a lot of stuff gets produced from Mexico and China as well, but ultimately, if you're buying new, that is where it's going to hurt. So if the tariffs do go into effect, keep in mind right now I believe they are on a 1-month pause. It's a 25% tariff to my knowledge. So I think the only manufacturer in Canada is Godin. I think that's to my knowledge anyway. I really don't know of any other ones, maybe some independent builders, which that would affect to importing it into the US if they're selling something. But it's more so Mexico. You know, you got the Fender factory in Mexico. I don't really know of any other guitar companies that uses factories in Mexico outside of Fender, but a whole bunch of them do in China. So that means let's say you get a Squire starter pack series. I think they're like $125 right now. So add 25% on top of that, so it'll probably be like $160. So that's ultimately what would happen. Is they are either going to decide whether they want to eat some of that cost, none of that cost, or pass all of that cost on to the consumer. Now, because you're already at a low margin, let's say $100 starter guitar, very low margin on those guitars. You know, it's still the same manufacturing process. You got to get a CNC machine. You got to have someone to put all the parts together, even though it is cheaper parts and cheaper construction. The margins are smaller because it's a smaller profit. You know, maybe you'll make, I don't know, $30. By the time it gets to the retailer, if they sell a $100 guitar, maybe they'll make $30 on it. Ultimately, by the time they get done with their cost, the factory get done with their cost, that's usually what it is. Typically, the margin is 60-40. Sometimes it's 70-30. It depends on where you are. So in terms of guitar stores, it's not really going to hurt them too much, but it is going to hurt the new gear. So if you go buy a brand new USA guitar, not going to be an issue. But if you go try to get a Mexican Strat, Mexican Tele, Mexican Jazzmaster, Jaguar, any of the Mexican range, whatever guitars, you try to get a Squire, you try to get an Epiphone, you try to get a Made in China Ibanez, a Jackson, a Peavey, a BC Rich, whatever it is, a Firefly even, the prices are going to go up. That's what's going to happen, is either they're going to lose a little bit, and then also the consumer is going to pay a little bit more, or they're going to lose nothing and the consumer is going to pay a lot more. So, you know, you get a $200 guitar, now that $200 guitar is going to be $250, potentially. That's what could happen. And it's ultimately only going to hurt people that are buying new instruments. It's really not going to hurt most guitar stores, most mom and pops, Guitar Center. I don't think it's really going to hurt any of them too bad, being that, yes, they do sell new gear, but they also have a plethora of used gear. So if someone goes in there and they say, hey man, why is the 2025 model $50 more expensive than the 2024 model, everything's the same, they're going to be like, oh, because of imports, you know, it costs more, blah, 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 new year, new model, but we still have the 2024 model brand new in stock because nobody bought the thing because there's too many guitars right now. Just save yourself $50 and buy that one, or buy used. That's what I would recommend. Until this whole situation blows over, just buy used. There's one, I think it was MJ Tone or something. Some amp said that they were going to have to end up charging the consumers an additional $1,000 because of where they get all of their parts from in order to, you know, break even or make their same profit margin. I think that's a little ridiculous. I think that particular amp company is blowing it out of proportion. So, you know, let's say it's a $2,000 amp. I think that would mean an additional $250 cost if I'm doing my percentages right. And don't trust my math. I'll be honest with you. If I say 100 and then goes to 125, or 200 goes to 250, that makes sense. But I want to say that 25% of 2,000 would be 250. I believe it is anyway. So that means the cost of that amp would go up to $2,250. So the more expensive the thing is, the more money you're going to have to pay for it. You know, as I said, for example, if you get, I'm trying to think of a high-end in Eastman. There we go. I think there's a couple of those that are $2,000. It'll probably go up to $2,250. So you're going to be paying extra money unless you stick used. As I said, if you want to buy a used, you're okay with buying used. It's really not going to affect you. Ultimately, the problem is right now is guitar pricing is kind of wonky. You know, they seem like they continuously raise the price no matter what. Epiphone talking about you. And I'm sure Epiphone talking about you, aka Gibson, will definitely use this as an excuse to raise their ridiculous prices on the Epiphone guitars even higher. I know they have some high end, I say that in quotation marks, Epiphones now, but ultimately it's a made in China guitar. It's the same price as their standard series. Their standard series are ridiculous now. They're up to like $700. So I would say expect that to go up to probably $850. I would guess, expect, you know, add another couple $100 on every single Epiphone. That's my guess if the tariffs do pass. Ultimately, as I said, everything's on pause right now. So nothing should be happening. If they're raising prices prematurely, that's some nonsense that they're just trying to get an extra buck out of you on the consumer market, and definitely go to the used market, because big corporations, they're in it for the money. Ultimately, that's what they're in it for. It's a business. They need to make money. They want to make money to pay their employees, to buy more products, to give you more stuff so you spend more money and they make more money. That's how businesses work, business 101 for you. And if the tariffs come into effect, we'll see if they're willing to take a little bit of a hit, because they got a pretty sweet deal during COVID. You know, 3-4 years, everybody and their grandmother was buying a guitar. Everybody wanted to play a guitar, and that's how the used market is flooded now, as I mentioned in one of my previous videos, Guitar Apocalypse. Go check that video out if you're curious. And ultimately, they made massive profits. And the guitars that were produced during those years were not the greatest, let's be honest. A lot of neck problems, a lot of fret sprout, a lot of crappy cosmetic paint and really expensive guitars. And I think it's kind of ridiculous that a lot of that stuff got passed through QC, but ultimately they couldn't produce them fast enough, so they were just spitting them out. And there's a lot more bad ones than good ones, I would say. Probably like 2020 to like 2024. 4 years, I would probably if I do buy one of those, I'd have to see it in person, not something I want to buy online. I want to make sure everything's squared away, because a little bit scary, I'll be honest with you. But that's where we're at. So right now, everything's on pause. The price of everything should not be raising. It should be staying flat or the same. outside of, a couple bucks here and there because of inflation or whatever, year after year. But right now, everything is on pause. We don't know what Trump's ultimate goal is out of the tariffs, and I think that's why a lot of people are doing stuff prematurely, because they don't know either. But as of right now, for at least the next month, everything's on pause. Feel free to buy brand new gear. You shouldn't have a price increase. After a month from, I think, like Tuesday, because I think that's when he said, okay, 25% tariff on everything. And then like a day after, he was like, okay, pause for a month until we figure things out. So hopefully he figures out what he wants in a month, and they may or may not go through, or there might be a certain percentage. The Mexico ones are the ones I don't understand the most, because to my knowledge, Mexico doesn't have any tariffs on U.S. goods. So why would you tariff a country when they're not tariffing you? If you're doing the tariff war thing, sorry, I'm getting too political. But as I said, with the Canada, there is some tariffs, but to my knowledge, Mexico, there's not. So I don't feel like that's an even situation, if you will. Take it one country at a time. But I'll leave you with that. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What you think of all these crazy Trump tariffs, what you think is going to happen in the market. Personally, me, I don't think I'm going to be affected. I mean, I'm not a mom and pop. I don't own my own shop. Yes, I do buy, sell, and trade a little bit on the side. I sold, what did I sell? I can't remember the last time I sold a guitar, but I have not bought a guitar in, I think, over 6 months. I think the last guitar I bought was the Firefly Double Neck, and I know I've had that for a year or a year and a half now. I don't remember how long I've had that guitar, but I've had it for a little while. So it's been a minute since I bought a guitar. I tried to buy one the other day with an amp, but price wasn't right. A lot of work on that one instrument. I was going to use it to try to get some fret leveling tools and practice a fret level job, because I don't really currently have any guitars that are in desperate need of one. Maybe the Epiphone behind me, but I'm kind of afraid to do it on that guitar, because that is a little bit of a nicer guitar. You want to start with something kind of junky and cheap, because if you mess it up, who cares? You only got $100 into it. But we'll see what happens. Until next time, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, like, share, comment, all that stuff down below. All of it helps, especially sharing. Especially if you watch the entire video. Appreciate it. Thank you for the 1,400 subscribers. Just hit 1,400. Highly appreciate that as well. And until next time, as always, have a good one.